at Coinbase and maybe even representing a lot of industry views more broadly, what is this reigniting that we're talking about here, like pushing these to the top of the agenda, what does that mean to maybe your company specifically? What does it mean to the broader crypto industry? What does it mean for Bitcoin? That now we actually have a shot on goal for things that we've been talking about for 3, 4, 5, 6 years now at this point.
You know, Coinbase is a global company, so we're all around the world, and I talk to governments everywhere, and they always ask me, what's the best, most important thing you can do from a policy perspective in crypto? And I always say it's the tone from the top. It's when you've got the leader of the country announcing that as a matter of national strategy, they want crypto and Bitcoin to be a part of that. And I always thought the US was probably different because we were a different jurisdiction, and then we saw what the tone from the top meant under the previous administration. It meant an attack on all of you and all of us who were in the sector for 4 sustained years in reasons that were just shocking and unbelievable. And so the tone from the top point is exactly what Donald Trump has showed us. He campaigned on Bitcoin and crypto, and he came in not just from day one in office, but from day one as president-elect to change the tone in Washington. And so he's put a real clear vision that he wants stablecoin legislation, he wants a market structure bill, he wants a much more strategic approach to how the United States approaches its handling of the billions of dollars of Bitcoin that it currently holds. And it wants to provide a home for innovators like all of you to build in the United States. And I think that's been formidable. It's been powerful for us as a company, but it's given members of Congress like the two on the panel here, who long ago understood the importance and the power of this technology, the impetus they need to get legislation through.
Talked a lot about stablecoins in the last panel. Market structure is a term that has been thrown around quite a bit, right? We need regulatory clarity, right? One of the amazing things about Bitcoin, at least, is its position as a commodity has been pretty firmly established for a while now, right? It is sufficiently decentralized. There's no CEO or foundation that controls it. There's a broader cryptocurrency industry that, frankly, has had, very little clarity from a regulatory perspective for a while now. And that doesn't just affect those crypto companies, it affects Bitcoin users and Bitcoin companies as well, right? When people see crypto as risky broadly, those same views get passed on to Bitcoin. A lot of people see these things as one and the same, right? So can we talk a little bit about, and this is an open question to anybody on this panel, what is the value of a market structure bill for moving Bitcoin companies in the US, moving this forward? What is the value of setting these clear rules of the road that, again, people have been asking for years and years? What actually happens when we do this? Because I fear that we've been talking about it for so long that people are just taking it for granted, and it's not actually clear to people anymore what the impact is. So walk us through impact of the market structure bill. What does this do?
The market structure bill is essential. And why is it essential? Because we talked about the 3 things that are in President Trump's executive order, and the one piece that wasn't on there because he inherently controls it is the appointment of regulators. And so if you like the regulators that President Trump is appointing like I do, you feel like we're in a pretty good position. But if we look back to the previous administration where President Biden appointed Gary Gensler at the SEC, you didn't like the regulator. And so as we look at the opportunity to put forward a regulatory framework, what we have is an opportunity to put some constraints and controls on the regulators. So under the Biden administration, policy was being developed through enforcement actions. And a lot of those enforcement actions, in my opinion, were politically driven. And what you got was a really unworkable regulatory framework. So yes, if we look today, we would all agree that Bitcoin is decentralized, it's not centrally controlled, it should be treated as a commodity, all very good things for the broader digital asset ecosystem. But what the fear is that a future regulator would come in and take actions that none of us in this room would agree with. And so by putting in place a regulatory framework through market structure, what we do is we clip the wings of a future regulator from coming in and trying to unwind what we're going to be able to accomplish during the Trump administration. And to me, at its core, it's that type of regulatory clarity which will allow investment and innovation in this space, which is so absolutely essential.
Well, just to add on, Brian is correct. The key piece is when you have a market structure really in Washington. So Washington knows where the boundaries are. Then it gives you guys the ability to raise capital, to start new enterprises, because now you have a certainty of how Washington is going to look at the overall industry. I mean, you talk to any business owner in the world, the number one thing they desire more than anything else is certainty and consistency. This provides that from the federal level. So whether it's raising capital, domiciling in a state, domiciling in Florida, but in domiciling a state, wherever you choose to do, once you have clear rules to the roads for the agencies, so you know where you are from a day in, day out basis, it changes the game. That's how this becomes a $1 trillion industry in the United States. Without it, a lot of fits and starts, people aren't quite sure, you're paying a lot of attorneys, paying a lot of attorneys to try to find a way to navigate your company or navigate your enterprise. And at the end of the day, who hurts more than anybody else? The individual owner and holder of commodities or of Bitcoin or of any stable coin, because there's not going to be a stability to that market, which will actually be one of the greatest things ever for long-term value.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Just to double down on the point that Congressman Donalds just made, I talk to investors all the time. There's a lot of them that you're all familiar with who've gotten into the crypto markets, but there are billions and billions and billions of dollars that are still left on the table by investors who just don't want to touch crypto because they don't have the risk appetite. They just expect at some point, 3.5 years from now, there'll be another Biden-type administration, re-engage the war on crypto, and they'll get caught under attack by future regulators. This provides clarity and certainty once Congress acts and does what the Congress is working on right now in terms of providing clarity. There will be investors that control trillions of dollars who will be willing to put money into the sector, funding innovators, owning crypto as an asset class, doing any number of things that they just can't do right now.
When you don't have clarity in this space, what you end up with is a lot of innovation and development occurring at boardrooms and law firms. And what we want to do is have innovation and development occurring in basements and dorm rooms. And so you get this right, you're pushing that innovation and development down out to regular folks rather than concentrating it in corporate control.
To that point, all three of you use the word certainty, right? Clarity, certainty. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, which, without getting into the weeds, basically it aims to allow exactly what you're talking about, the dorm room applications that are being built on Bitcoin, open source software. It allows developers to operate and create software without fear of being punished or penalized by regulators, right? There's legislation, there are things that need to be determined via legislation. Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, it aims to solve a very specific regulatory problem that has really hindered people from creating open source software because they're scared that a single person in the bureaucracy is going to decide, oh, they broke this minutia, right? They broke this rule, and now we're going to charge them with federal crime and throw them in prison. That is certainly keeping people from innovating. But I want to pivot.
Well, real quick, the only thing I'm gonna add to what you just said, and again, this goes to the importance of having certainty, because a lot of times, it's not that there was some law that was broken, it's that you have some G12 regulator in some agency who saw something and they have an interpretation of it where Congress has never spoken to it. Or they'll try to reach back, and Gensler was the worst at this. You got people who are reaching back to the 33 Securities Act to try to make a determination on technology being developed today. Totally ridiculous, but that's why you have to have what we're gonna do here in the next couple of months.
I want to pivot here. This is advancing Bitcoin bills in Congress, and the third pillar and the current administration's agenda is a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Congressman Donalds, you've put forward some legislation seeking to codify the executive order on the strategic Bitcoin reserve into law. This is, again, a priority for the administration. It's a recognition of Bitcoin as a strategic asset. There's a companion bill of Senator Lummis's bill, the Bitcoin Act, that is in the House today, that wants the United States to buy 1 million Bitcoin over the course of 5 years. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of Bitcoin as an asset? What makes Bitcoin a strategic asset? And why did you move forward that legislation?
Well, I'm gonna address one thing. We talked about it in the back. I'm familiar with the Lummis baggage bill. We drafted a bill that codifies the president's EO. The only reason I haven't co-sponsored the Lummis baggage bill is, I mean, we get busy, man. There's bills all over DC. So it's not I don't like Nick Begich and I don't like his bill. I actually like Nick Begich. I endorsed him, helped to get to Congress. I think he's great. It's just, we get busy and sometimes you just didn't go to him and say, hey, put me on this. But definitely that bill comes to committee, I'm voting for it. Now to why it's important. Bitcoin has proven to be a holder of value. It's proven it to me, it's proven it really to the entire world. I remember back in 2015 when I was in financial services, I think Bitcoin was trading at 1,100 a coin, 1,200 a coin maybe at the time. And I had clients come to me and they're like, should we buy Bitcoin? And I would sit there and be like, I don't know, the first thing about that stuff, do what you want. If you got a spare $2 grand, have fun, I don't care. But what it has proven over the last decade is that you believe in it. And at the end of the day, anything on this planet that has value because you have a broad swath of people who have a fundamental agreement that this is a holder, whether it was precious metals, gold, silver before, or Bitcoin today. Secondly, of course, there's only gonna be, 21 million ever in creation? So that in and of itself demonstrates a baseline that can't be eroded by central banks, by debasing currencies, etc. I think the last reason why this is critical for the United States is, let's just be blunt with each other. We accuse other nations of messing with their currencies, but we have allowed ours to be diminished in purchasing power because the federal government spends far too much money. And we are borrowing the future earnings of the American people to pay for, we are borrowing future earnings to pay for current living expenses. That's what the federal government is doing. So if you know this, and we have a debt problem, which we do, the prudent thing to do is try to amass assets that you can hold that have an appreciating value to help offset some of your long-term liabilities. That's why a strategic Bitcoin reserve, in my view, is critical to the United States.
We pass the same question to you, Congressman Style. What does a strategic Bitcoin reserve mean to you? Have you thought about this? Last year at this conference in Nashville, President Trump announced that if elected, he would establish a strategic Bitcoin stockpile. And again, 2 months ago, this is what happened. Do you have any thoughts on this kind of being the third pillar of the administration's digital asset focus?
Super excited. I was talking with Senator Lummis, I've talked with Nick Begich on this. Here's a couple questions I think to get in the weeds of how you actually implement this. What is the current inventory of digital assets across the United States? Senator Lummis was talking about this earlier. To get to the answer to that is actually more complicated than it ever should be. If you want to know how your federal government spends money, it should be incredibly transparent and straightforward. As Byron Donalds and I know, it's not nearly as transparent as it should be. We need a broader inventory, and then there needs to be a better understanding of how we are controlling these assets. It's easy to think of your federal government seizes a physical asset, a gold bar, where it's stored, how it's secured. The rules of the road are not nearly as clear as it relates to Bitcoin, to digital assets, to crypto. And so we have to get the building blocks right first, and a lot of us are working in the weeds to get that piece done correctly, which then unlocks a lot of the other really interesting legislation that Senator Lummis and others are working on.
Knock off stablecoins, knock off market structure. Hey, Bitcoin Reserve is right there. Faryar, super quickly, does Coinbase support the Bitcoin Reserve?
Oh, absolutely. We're a very strong supporter of the Bitcoin Reserve. And I think the way the two congressmen said it is exactly right. The government right now holds billions of dollars of Bitcoin that they've seized through various sort of civil and criminal procedures. and they manage it in a completely non-strategic way. And when Donald Trump came in, and I think looking at it as a business guy, and basically said, listen, we're holding all this Bitcoin, we're disposing of it in ways that have no remunerative benefit to the United States. We have to have a national strategy around this, and he established one through an executive order. He's asked Congress to act on it. The two congressmen here are big supporters of it. We're strong supporters of it. And so I think we'll see congressional action soon, hopefully.
We got a few minutes left. I want to talk about bipartisanship. I want to talk about moving bills. Faryar, very quickly, Coinbase got involved with elections. Can you just talk through what made you all take that leap?
Well, it's like I said, I mean, we found ourselves in the fall of 2023 recognizing that we were facing an existential threat. We did all the normal things that companies do. We lobbied, we wrote position papers, we did this and that, and we realized that the Biden administration, Elizabeth Warren, Gary Gensler, weren't going to stop at anything until they destroyed us. And so we decided we had to respond. And so ironically, what we did is we helped create the largest single-issue super PAC ever in U.S. history, 175 million. It'll be bigger next year. We also have a grassroots operation at StandWithCrypto.org, which by the election day hit 2.2 million members. We're going to support the group to hit 4 million. And the goal, ironically, is to build the largest political operation ever and to take the politics out of crypto. And I think we're on our way to do that.
Woo! Congressman Style, in order to get anything moved in Congress today, it's got to be bipartisan. We just saw the Genius Act in the Senate get a bunch of Democratic votes. So you're doing work on stable coins, you're doing work on market structure. Eventually, it sounds like Bitcoin Reserve. Talk through your approach on working across the aisle to get these things moving.
This legislation shouldn't be partisan. It should be nonpartisan legislation because this is about making the United States of America the location for digital assets, for Bitcoin, for crypto. And if we do this right, the United States of America wins. In drafting this legislation, that is an in-the-weeds conversation with my Democratic colleagues. On the House side in our committee, as we move forward our Stable Act legislation, we had Democrats coming across the table to work with us and vote in favor of it. As we look back to last Congress, as we move forward market structure in the House, we had over 70 Democrats voting with the overwhelming number of Republicans, or all the Republicans, to move that legislation forward. And so this is upon building upon that success, but the goal here needs to be not moving it just through committee or just through the floor of the House. We need to make sure that we get this all the way across the line and signed into law. And to do that, we need Republicans and Democrats together. And who wins? The United States of America wins if we do this right.
Congressman Donalds, close us out. Final thoughts, bipartisanship, moving bills, anything you want to leave the audience with?
I think bipartisanship definitely can be had, especially on this issue. Brian is absolutely right. America wins, but individuals win. People who are trying to figure out wealth at the bottom, they win with this type of legislation. Last thing I'll tell everybody here, you may not care about politics, but politics cares about you. So I would be thinking very clearly as you start to move in however you love Bitcoin and digital assets, how you move in your industry, you need to think very clearly politically. Because the people who have voting cards, I have mine in my pocket right now, those of us with voting cards and how we think about these issues are going to define the future. So you may not care about politics, but trust me, politics cares about you and your industry.
Faryar is going to get me in trouble here. We are out of time. Go for it.
So one thing for people who don't know, Congressman Donalds is running for governor of Florida. When he wins, if he wins, the tone from the top in Florida is going to be pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto. So just want to make sure we said that.
All right, they're kicking us off. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Ron, and our incredible panel. You guys really brought the energy here. Yes, we are smashing it. What an incredible day for code and country. It is really filling up out there, guys. We have 2 more sessions left. I can't believe it. It is going by so quickly. They do say that though, when you're having fun, time flies by, and this day really has.
ये सब policies क्यों बन रहे हैं?
Very
सिर्फ यूएस को टॉप लीडर बनाने के लिए। इंडिया को हम काफ़ी लोग चाहिए जो क्रिप्टो में सपोर्ट करें, पॉलिसीज बनाने में हेल्प करें, एक मूवमेंट लेके आए, तभी इंडिया कहीं ना कहीं कम्पीट कर पाएगी। ये बात याद रखना। आगे जाके काफ़ी लोगों को थोड़े से स्टेप्स लेने पड़ेंगे, थोड़ी आवाज़ उठानी पड़ेगी ताकि इंडिया कहीं ना कहीं ग्लोबल स्टेज पे लीड कर पाए क्रिप्टो में। ठीक है, क्रिप्टो वाला विल डू इट। क्या आप हमारे साथ हैं? जय हिंद।